Evening, welcome to the Meldon Law Monday. I'm Buddy Martin on this, not Monday. It's Meldon Law sponsored, but it's not Monday. Hello, brain, work, long day. It's Wednesday. That means it's Alley Peak Wilbur night, always one of our favorite times. And tonight, Kevin Brockway will catch us up on any of the hard news. And our good friend Carlton Reese, who does some really great work for us, both as editor and writer, as columns she read on Gator Bait, will join us tonight, talk about the progress of a big project he's got going on. And we'll talk about what else? Going out to Kyle Field. I'm going to make a little bit of a comparison tonight between Florida Field and Kyle Field. Actually, Steve Spurrier, Florida Field. And I don't know a lot about it. I've never actually set foot in Kyle Field. But I know I read a lot about it. And you know how big it is. Get your thoughts about that. I know the people who came here, many of them posted from Texas, how impressed they were that Steve Spurrier, Florida Field, Ben Hill Griffith was so loud because it was so small, okay? Think in terms of Texas. You know, their stadium is 108 and ours is 90,000. So that just figures it. Anyway, tonight on the program, it's going to be a fun time. We'll look at what happened last week. We're always going to have, like the old line of Casablanca, we'll always have Texas. It was one of those great moments. Probably a top 10 of all time win because of when it came. We have lots to talk about there. So let's get with it. We'll be joined shortly by Alley Pete Wilbur. Meanwhile, we'll talk to you about percentages. What did they say about Florida's chances? Everything is percentage. You know, anymore. It's all about percentages. Well, what did the percentages say about Florida after a huge win going out to Texas to take on the fifth-ranked undefeated Aggies? Well, we'll tell you about that. Plus a lot of other stuff on the program. So tell your friends and neighbors, the Buddy Martin Show. It's not Monday, it's Wednesday. Is on the air.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening. As I said in my promo for the show, in the last 75 years, Billy Napier is the only Florida coach who has not finished the season ranked in the final Associated Press poll. My question, is it too late to reverse this after such a terrific performance in the swamp? And will they carry their fight to Kyle Field? That's going to be interesting. We'll talk about that with Alley Pete Wilbur, Kevin Brockway, and Carlton Reese tonight on the program. An interesting story about Zach Almaverdi. We'll talk about Vernell Brown, Dallas Wilson, and a couple of young receivers. What a great future they're going to have if they don't get stolen away and now they'll deal someplace. And so it's going to be a fun time to watch this team. Meanwhile, you watch any baseball? I watched the Cubs last night. Almost blew that game and came back to win it. Milwaukee managed to beat them the first two, and they were down. They were about to go out, just like the Yankees last night. The Yankees could have been out of it last night, but what a performance they had. Big, huge comeback last night with home runs. So I watched a little baseball when I'm preparing for this show, but my heart, as you all know, is with football. Let me tell you about a couple of the programs. One in particular I'm kind of proud of, having fun with. It's the Saturday. It's a Friday. It's Friday weekend show is what it is. Panhandle Gator Club podcast with Buddy Martin and Rob Dodson and Rob Brown. Terrific guys, two Robs. Sponsored by Rocket Lanes in Panama City Beach. And this is a program that goes just bi-monthly. Means every 2 weeks we do it. We try to make it about area things in the panhandle. We have people on that sometimes you wouldn't normally have on. Maybe you and a high school coach or two. People who have Gator connections or connections to other schools up here. As you know, Auburn and Alabama and that school out west is everyone used to call it. They all have big influences, right? But there are a lot of Gators. And in fact, Jay Moody, the son-in-law of Steve Spurrier, I'm hopeful we're going to have him on the show on Friday. He and Amy, of course, and me, was the one who helped put together the idea for the restaurant. Steve Spurrier's grand. What a great job of doing there with that. So got an event coming up I'll tell you about too. So anyway, and then tomorrow you're going to meet one of our guys. I'm really proud to say just sort of happened this way. People in Gator country have a calling. They come here and they work and they give their best. Most of them don't get paid because we just haven't got the money. I don't make any, so if I had it, I'd be glad to pay it. But nonetheless, we do have people who like to write and take photography. I wrote about Chris Spears last week. Fantastic job he does of taking pictures. Now, a guy that Chris recommended to me about last year has been writing for us lately, and Eddie Gilly, who works through the Baptist Church here in Gainesville, has been writing regularly for us, and Eddie's been doing a fine job. He really has. I don't have his piece for this week, but he'll probably have it tonight or tomorrow. And we want to tell you about Eddie and have Eddie on tomorrow. So there you go. So here's where we stand. The people who make percentages say Florida has a 28% chance of beating Texas A&M. Does that sound about right to you? I don't know a lot about Texas A&M. I know who they've beaten. I know that they got a fine quarterback in Marcel Reed and, whatever. And their coaches quite well last year, and they're undefeated. Nonetheless, the question is 28%. What do you think? To me, I would lower those odds because you're coming off of a huge victory 2 weeks prior. And, of course, the fact is that let me get my computer plugged in before it goes out. The fact is that the odds are against you winning after a big win. It takes so much out of you, and so we want to put that fact in there. I'm going to ask you just let me take a quick break here because I've got to plug a computer in here someplace and make sure I get power. Anyway, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Just hold there. Allie will be here shortly, and we'll see if we can get this computer thing figured out with the power, which is what we're going to do next. One of the things you do when you don't have a producer, you're your own producer. So, give me your thoughts. I'm going to get back to the message boards here in just a moment and get your thoughts about this because, hold on 1 second. Sorry. Stand by, folks. All right. Okay. Let's see. Hopefully we'll have Allie here in a minute, and I can go find the cord that charges this computer. which would be nice if I could do that. She should be joining us shortly. If I go blank, you'll know why, okay? All right. Let's do this and this. We can conserve a little power. All right, bear with me. All right, so back to the show we're working on tonight. As we know, it's a huge weekend. It's a huge game, and one in which Florida is going to be tested to the max. Can, in fact, DJ Brockway perform up to the same levels? That's the question a lot of people had for me today when I was out and about. Is this guy going to be able to play like this? I don't know. I really don't have a feel for this game. I had a pretty good feel for it prior to the last game. I had a good feeling about it. I thought maybe that this team might pull this upset, and said so. It's going to be interesting. Here's the injury report. As we say, we're hoping not going to. Let's go see if we can get Carlton right now. Carlton's here. Hello, Carlton. You're just in time.
Hey, buddy.
I'm about to go out of power here. You're just in time to rescue me. So I'm going to put you on. Let's see if you're prepared to talk about the initial report as injuries. We've got Trayon Webb, LJ McCray out, Aaron Gates, Duke Clark, Dejon Johnson, and Caleb Banks. And in questionable, Aiden Mizell, Muzz Tunkara, Jacoby Jackson, Devon Manuel, Roderick Kearney, Tony Odinson, and Joseph Machubachu. So we're talking about it's the odds say 28%. Given your investment analysis, good number, bad number, do you think this team is capable of pulling this thing off? It's going to be tough.
I think they're capable of beating any team in their schedule. I thought that at the beginning of the season. I thought that before Miami. I thought that before LSU. And I even thought it before Texas. We were just waiting for the evidence to kind of come through that proves that was a pretty good sentiment.
Yeah.
I'll say this, buddy. I think this game at Texas A&M is the toughest game on their schedule.
I'm going to go ahead and bring Allie Peak Wilbur in with you. You guys can talk to her while I'm trying to get my act together. She just joined.
Well, good. We get to bring an expert on then. So.
She doesn't know what she's getting into tonight. So here's Allie Peak Wilbur. Evening to you, Allie. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Well, I'm panicking at the moment. I'm not about to go out of power. So say hello to Carlton, and you guys bring down the game while I go do this, okay?
All right.
I think I'll let Allie do it mainly. I was just saying, Allie, that I think this is the toughest game on Florida's schedule up to now and even for the rest of the season. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
So over the summer, I'm sure I said it on this show, I said it on my show, that I think I've always labeled this as a bellwether game. I think, Mike Elko's been in place less time than Billy Napier has been in place. They've recruited at a similar clip. They have several players we wanted or played for us. We have several that they wanted. I think it's a good measuring stick. But I agree with you. I think Texas wasn't as good as we expected them to be. I think LSU's maybe not even as good as we thought that they could potentially
100%, I agree.
And I think that Texas A&M may not be, our daddy's 8-4 Texas A&M team that we're used to seeing join the SEC. And I do think if Florida can beat them, there's not a game left on the schedule that doesn't look winnable. And so there's a lot of good teams left on Florida's schedule, but I do think that this one is maybe the biggest test left.
Yeah, and I think it's a big one for keeping the momentum going with what they have. I mean, if you win at College Station, then you get Mississippi State at home, and then Georgia, I think, looks like a very beatable team to me, at least with Florida's defense. And then you got Kentucky down the road. This team could really be smoking going to Ole Miss, which I think is probably the second toughest game on the schedule.
Yeah. I mean, momentum is real. We saw how the season started, but there's a lot of monkeys that still left to get off Coach Napier's back. And I think road SEC win is a big one. They haven't had any real true, big wins on the road in the SEC under his tenure. And this could be that. And, everybody talks about how difficult College Station is to play in, but Florida's 2 of 3 there since they joined the SEC. So it's not a venue that we haven't been able to pull out a win in. So it's doable. I will be so interested to see how we contain Marcel Reed. I think this is the biggest defensive test for Florida so far. I actually think that their offense maybe is even better than Miami's, which would probably be the best one that we've seen so far. I'm not a big Carson Beck fan. I think Miami is good because their trenches are good and because their defense is good.
I was underestimating Miami simply because I didn't like Carson Beck.
Yeah,
I think Miami's now better than I thought. LSU, I've never been sold on them, and was a little surprised that Florida lost. And but I think Florida's defensive line, going up against Marcel Reed, I got to see how Florida's going to contain him. How do you see that?
I think Florida has not done a great job outside of the Texas game, getting sacks, getting pressure, and they really turned it around with a hobbled defensive line, truly, against Texas. And I felt like that was impressive, but I'm also, was it that Texas's offensive line is that bad, or did Florida figure something out defensively that they hadn't figured out prior to? I mean, this defense has been good, but they haven't been good in the sacks category. So I'm so interested to see, did we fix something, or is Texas's offensive line that bad? And I think we're going to know that answer by about the end of the first quarter of this game.
Yeah, and I kind of look at Texas A&M too, and they're number 5, and they're playing at home, and everyone's on the A&M bandwagon. But have they really proven themselves with their schedule?
No, not yet. No, and they've given up a ton of points outside of the last 2 games. I mean, what did they give up? 40 to Notre Dame? I'm not overly
Would have been 41 in overtime had a guy made an extra point.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I am not sold on their offense, but I'm really sold on their defense. So I think it's strength on strength in that department. I expect it to be low scoring. One of the things that Texas A&M has been able to do is every once in a while hit an explosive play. And that I could see in a matchup that I really do view as being so low scoring, explosive plays could be the difference.
Yeah, and Texas had them against Florida too.
Oh yeah, they just didn't catch them. I mean, which makes me concerned for this game too, because if you go back and you watch the film, there were many opportunities where our DBs were beat and arched off the mark. So Marcel,
a lot of that had to do with the pressure though too.
It did. And I don't think that Marcel Reed is like some, quarterback savant through the air. I think he is better with his feet, but he's capable of hitting the big play every once in a while. So if that happens, that could be a problem.
Yeah, if no one's convinced about Marcel Reed, then they weren't at the Swamp last year.
Truly, I thought that was like his Heisman campaign starting.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
That game. He was great.
Buddy, you got power there now, or?
I hope so. I don't know. What's what happens when you change studios and you move from Ocala here and you look all your gear, it's all the floor, and you got cords and wires and whatever. But I'm here. Glad to be with you two guys. You're having a good conversation. Don't let me stop it. I want to get to some point. I guess I'd call it waxing poetic a little bit. And Carlton, I told you about this. If you really dig down deep and think about what happened at the game and about how the stadium and the fans played such a huge role in this win, as I wrote, Billy Napier should write a handwritten thank you note to the extra 80,000 fans who cheered his Gators on there and got them to a point where in late in the game it caused so much chaos for Texas A&M that Manning couldn't get a playoff. They had all those illegal motion penalties, etc. And and when you start looking at the comments that the other people from Texas made, and I read some, got a couple in here, is that they seem kind of surprised. Mm-hmm. And I think I know why, and I'm going to try to explain this as I did the other night, that in Texas, it's all about how big you are. Everything is size. Everything big, big, big. Well, Kyle Field holds what, Allie? 108,000? What is it?
Yeah.
And Florida has a measly 90, right? Yeah. So somebody made a comment, and he was being very complimentary to Florida and the Gators as a Swamp, etc., and said, you could drop the Swamp or the Gator, Ben Hill Griffin in the middle of Kyle Field.
Yeah.
Because it's that big out there. And they seem a little stunned. And I thought to myself, what is it that we know the basics?
Yeah.
But if you want to get scientific and a little bit philosophical about what it is, the metaphysical and the physical, it's more than just one or two things. Because physically it is in a whole, and you have the sound that rises up. It doesn't bounce off of mountains and canyons. It's right there and hovering. You're on top of it. We all know this. The heat is unbearable. The noise is really loud. And Gator fans feel almost an obligation, as I call it, to get a congregational will.
Yeah.
Just say together, let's make this happen. And they feel like they can do that, I believe. That's one way of looking at it. I don't know enough about Kyle Field. You guys comment on that.
Carlton, you go first there.
Well, I think there is a physical element to it, buddy. And that's how that stadium is built. You mentioned how it is below ground, and it's very steep, too. I think when you look at Cameron Indoor Stadium, why is that such a tough place to play? Or even the old Alligator Alley, you remember Florida played? The fans were right up on the court, and it's very intimidating. It's very uncomfortable for the players. And I think the Swamp has a little bit of that, too. You got that brick wall right around the field. There's no track around the field. It's a brick wall with a hedge on two sides of it. And the fans are right there. The fans are right behind the visitors' bench. Well, they now put the visitor fans there, too, but it used to be where the Florida students were right behind them. But that didn't work out too well. And I think those things really contribute to kind of the mystique for the Swamp and just how it's constructed. You can sit on road 98 at the Swamp, and you're closer to the field than you are on row 40 at a lot of other stadiums.
Yep. I think somebody told me in the stands on Saturday that we are the closest from the first row to the field of any stadium in the country. And I believe that we are right on top of there. That's part of why I've been so vocal about not wanting any changes to the stadium, because I do think that it is such an advantage, and doing things to take away from that is asinine. And I understand that there are things that have to happen because of the, being ADA compliant and stuff like that. I'm not opposed to that, but I am opposed to anything that takes away the home field advantage that I think is the best home field advantage in college football. But, the interesting thing, buddy, and I don't know if you both will agree with this or not, but I felt like the stadium was consistently loud, very loud. I would not rank it in my top 10 loudest games that I've attended in person, though, in the Swamp, which I think is so interesting because the amount of Texas fans that I saw on social media talking about how it was the loudest stadium that they had ever been to.
Right.
And it was disruptive. Like, shoot, what would they think of this stadium in the 90s, Florida State? Or what would they think? I think about the South Carolina game where Jarvis Moss blocked a kick. Like, there's so many times I can think of that. Even LSU in 2018. There's Auburn a few years ago. Some games that come to mind that just were absolutely earth-shattering. I wouldn't put this one in that at all. I almost feel like Florida was too in control for the majority of the game for it to be, that extra layer of. It was incredibly loud. It was incredibly intense, but it was not the loudest that stadium gets, which is pretty cool.
I think the vibe was great, though.
It was.
The vibe was one of the great top 10s of all time, and I've seen a lot of games there.
It's a desperation vibe.
Well, and that's what Florida football is. That is what Florida football has always been, is desperation. And I said this before the game last week.
Is that the title of your next book, buddy?
Could be. I said we talked about it last week a great deal at length, and I said, we've seen this, but we haven't read this book, even written this book. This is how it is in Florida. It's the way it's always been. I go back to some classic moments like when really Richmond should have beaten Ray Graves' team in 1963, whatever that was. And they didn't. They got out of it alive. And then that night, that after the game, post-game, I was sitting next to Ray, and he says, we have absolutely no chance whatsoever against Alabama next week in Tuscaloosa. None, zero. And, of course, they beat them in Tuscaloosa. I don't know. There's Newton's Law or whatever it is, but just when you count them out, think they're dead in the water. And it seems like this team with Billy has even more of a quality about this desperation. He's been fired once already, and now he's about to go through the second dead man walking, and I don't count anything out now. Do I think there'll be Texas A&M? No, I don't. But I've been. Spurrier said on his podcast today, he reminded him of himself when he was at Duke struggling, and they were 1-3, and they played Clemson.
Well, that's a very kind comparison by the old ball coach.
But think about it. He says, had I not beaten Clemson, I would never have gotten the job in Florida. They won the rest of the games, and they won the ACC. Now, you talk about winning an ACC at Duke. Are you kidding me? So there's a certain element there, which makes it's like watching two trains collide. You can't look away. You got to watch it from that standpoint. I don't know what to expect out of this team. I'm not really sure what this team is yet. I just know in terms of enjoying a game and watching a game. And by the way, we are voyeurs. We do watch, we do report, we do write. Carlton had a fine column right after the game on Saturday. Alex had a couple of good podcasts because there is some element to it. As I said, the congregational will of the people, the way the team played, we thought we saw the DJ Lagway before, and now here he showed up. And then you get a kid named Wilson. Oh, my word. That was an amazing performance, and particularly the one where he went down the sideline. He was just out-of-body experience.
It was one of you talk about a offensive skill player, freshman, first start. Like I said in my column, it reminded me when I was there in the stadium when Emmitt Smith tore off 224 in his first start.
Yeah,
and that was in Birmingham. It wasn't in Tuscaloosa. It was in Birmingham, and this was probably the next best freshman skill player performance in his first start that I've seen at Florida. It kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, I mean, he was incredible, and he looks like a grown man out there. He just physically is so imposing, and it reminds me of some of the wide receivers we had in the past. Like that was like a wide receiver from the Spurrier era, just big-bodied, physical. He was unstoppable. I'll be interested to see how teams scheme for him moving forward now that there's some film. And each week it'll get slightly harder for him to do these things because there will be more and more tape on him. But I do think he's such a special talent that he's going to get his regardless. But this team looked different. When I watched Alabama, Georgia a couple weeks ago, I said to Eric, I was like, man, I miss big boy football. Like this is two good teams just going at it. And I did feel like I saw glimpses of that on Saturday, and I hadn't previous to that during this season, truly. And Florida looked like they had the ability to be dominant. That defense was so aggressive. We took some chances on offense. We were patient running the ball. All the things that we all scream at our screen or in the stands, every single week of this season, we saw some of those things come to fruition. And I think this team has the ability to win several more this season. I'm interested to see what happens at Texas A&M. I just keep wanting to know why it always takes 4 games into the season.
That was my column Saturday, and some people thought it's just negative Nelly, but why? I mean, where was this earlier against Miami and LSU? Why do we have to wait till now? Why do they have to be backed in a corner to play their best football? I mean, you get 12 times a year in the regular season to show up and play. That's not much. Go ahead and do it.
The thing that I think is extra interesting about it is it generally happens after a bye week that they get it together and they come out and they look different. But if you were able to turn around in that short of window of time, what are you doing or saying in that bye week that you aren't already doing or saying the rest of the season? And why aren't you? That, take whatever you did in that little tiny window and replicate that the entire offseason, because that's what's missing. But it's they could win out and make the playoffs at 9-3.
They might even be able to lose a game with that schedule. If they lost a game and went 8-4, they'd be talked about.
They'd be talked about. It depends on how the rest of the schedule, shakes out and stuff. But I think So your best case scenario, they were on the table, right? And they finished 9-3. I'm in no way predicting that this happens. I'm just saying theoretically, that's your best case scenario here.
All right, you heard it. She said it right here, 9-3. That's what she said.
As Gator fans, at what point is the roller coaster too much? Or are we okay?
Yeah.
Like, listen, like, okay, if we take 3 losses at the beginning of the season, but we're going to make the playoffs, so it's totally worth it. I mean, and maybe it is. I don't know. But it is such a, like, I'm losing years off my life.
It is hard. You know, I think it's a lot of what you're hearing. We're going to bring Kevin Brockway in a minute. From people, you say, well, Billy's play calling. Well, this, well, that. I think fans just want to have a win and enjoy it and stop having so much angst every weekend. Yeah. And, you know, Shane and I have talked about this a lot the last year and a half. And he's to the point too, where he just wants to let it happen and see what it is. Enjoy the things that are good and the ones that aren't, you can bitch about it. But I think it's just something here in Gator fans like, okay, this one was a bonus I didn't expect, but you made up for some of what you messed up on, but you haven't yet. But when something good happens and they win, find reasons to be happy because everybody's unhappy at a loss.
If Florida had beaten USF, I don't think the fact that they lost to Miami.
If they beat USF, they'd have been right where most people thought they were. Right, and I thought they might knock off Miami or LSU too.
They could keep those LSU and Miami losses. If they just didn't beat USF at home, we'd be having a totally different conversation.
Yeah. But if this was the first time that this had happened, we'd say, oh, wow, this is great. We got surprised by this victory. Now maybe we'll get on a roll. But we've seen it all the time in this era. You know, they go out and they beat Utah with hey, this is a better team. And then they lay an egg against Kentucky. Yeah. And then we all saw what happened last year. The season's flushed, and then they win. And here we go again.
Yeah. Let me do this real fast. And we'll bring Kevin on to tell you about our sponsors. There you see the QR code there. If you need a lawyer and a good Gator lawyer and a good Gator, you can't get any better than this. Meldon Law, they won't back down. They have offices down to serve you up and down Florida. They have over 50 attorneys down. The 4 right in north central Florida and 1 down around the Boca Raton area. Meldon Law, they put their money where their mouth is. They sponsor many things. They've done great things for the band transportation, and nobody loves Gator sports more than Jeffrey Meldon, who just lapped up that season with the basketball team, following them all around to California and Texas and North Carolina. And matter of fact, the book's coming out soon about that, which we'll tell you at the Carlton now. We'll tell you about it later. And that book, of course, is called, what's it called? The Golden Year?
The Golden Season, subtitle when the Gator boys got hot.
There you go. Franz Beard wrote most of it, and we'll have them to sign soon in the neighborhood near you. So check it out. Meldon Law, they won't back down. Let's go get Kevin and get him into this. He always wants to stir it up with something. We'll see what he's going to do this time or the other. But I think we were all talking, guys, last week. At the end of the week, we began to realize there was some reason to expect Florida to play well. I think we all kind of thought they might. And I think it turned out to be like, Kevin, what'd you think?
Buddy, hey, rewind the tape. Remember, I predicted a win last week. I think.
That's right.
And I did. I predicted in the Sun as well. No, I just kind of thought that the matchup was good. Texas traveling as far as they did. Arch Manning didn't knock my socks off, and he certainly didn't in that game as well. And the offensive line too. And Florida looked like a good SEC line of scrimmage team again. I think that was first and foremost. After getting manhandled against Miami, they really came out and played well on both lines of scrimmage. I think that was a good start to the foundation. DJ Lagway and the Dallas Wilson injection in the offense. I think that all added up to a pretty good performance. Now, as I wrote, can you build off it? Can you get on a little bit of a roll here? Can you be consistent? That's what Billy Napier talked about tonight. Can you handle a little bit of success this week and just stick to the process? And that's going to be the big test going up against the Texas A&M team that, as we know, got that last-second win against Notre Dame. They're kind of dancing on destiny here at 5-0. They're feeling very good about themselves. It's going to be a tremendous challenge. 108,000 in Kyle Field, too, as well. Not going to be an easy task.
Yeah, Franz had a nice column today talking about it. He said 3 days later, the euphoria of Texas wins began to wear off. The warm and the fuzzies are being replaced by the here and now of road trip to College Station to face fifth-ranked Texas A&M, 5-0, 2-0 in the SEC. Saturday evening will be Florida's fourth consecutive game against the top 10 team, and the third time in the last 4 days the Gators have had a top 5. Nobody in the country has to deal with a schedule like this beyond Saturday. It's only going to get worse. Okay, that's the forecast. Here's the thing. In retrospect, we can see a lot. We didn't know Miami might be the best team in the country. We had no idea that was going to happen, right? And
I did, but I might be a little biased.
Well, yeah, you always you're eternally optimistic. I thought Miami was an 8-win team. Anyway, I was wrong. They're good. Maybe the best team. We'll see about that. They haven't got to play anybody, and that's what I'm getting to. You got to get drilled down and realize the difference when you're playing against a great quality competition. And the fact is, the guiding bodies of college football have not yet found a way to give people an advantage for playing a tough schedule. I mean, you might as well play a bunch of passes. Now you can't.
You're saying Miami hasn't played a tough schedule with Florida and Notre Dame and USF that beat Florida? You're saying that?
I don't think Miami's rest of the schedule is even big league football.
And Florida State, who happened to beat Alabama, who's one of the SEC's darlings.
That's not what I said, Kevin. It's not 1 or 2 games.
Okay.
It's every friggin' Saturday. Okay, having to tee it up against a team that could beat your brains out. That's the difference. You know, it's like in prize fighting. When you keep fighting the great fighters, you can't keep fighting the fight. Eventually, that residual impact will take you down. Now, I'm just saying, you're not going to sit there and tell me Miami's schedule is as good as Florida's. That's not going to fly with me. You know it's not. The fact is, break them all down. Look at the schedules. Look and see who's doing well, who's got what. There's a lot of meat on that chicken bone out there. And so I'm not saying Florida's getting screwed, but when they go to 9 games next year, it's going to be worse. There's not even a chance to breathe, for crying out loud.
I'm gonna dispute you on that too, buddy. You want to know why?
Sure,
because
Kevin,
you don't have Tennessee and you don't have LSU anymore. You replace them with Kentucky and South Carolina. I think that the way that schedule lays out for Florida, I think Billy Napier's had the short end of the stick the last couple of years with the tough of the schedule. I don't think next year's schedule is going to be nearly, and Auburn being down and, not being what it was. I'm telling you, like I said, I think that's, even though you lose those 2 rivalries, I think that's a bonus for Florida in terms of, how the SEC lays out compared to as the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying they've had the.
I'd rather add Stanford.
They had the two years of the toughest schedule in the country. I think it is. Also, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'd rather add Stanford and SMU than South Carolina and Kentucky. I mean, I think
SMU was a college football playoff team last year, right?
I mean,
jeez, yeah,
they shouldn't have been,
sure.
but
Whatever.
With a coach that a lot of people think very highly of, including some people inside the Florida building. But that's another story for another day.
So, Kevin, you go tell me the other teams out there. Go ahead. You're going to tell me that the other teams are playing the same schedule as the SEC. Is that what you're telling me?
Buddy, we know the SEC is stronger than the ACC all across the board.
Well, but you made the case.
But we also know that a school like Miami has scheduled Notre Dame. They've scheduled Florida. It's not like they've challenged themselves in the non-conference enough where it's somewhat balances out.
Okay, you can have that, Kevin. It's not true, but
Well,
go ahead.
MAC teams challenge themselves in the non-conference too. So what?
Yeah. Anyway, the point is, I think we're missing a point here. That we didn't know back when the season started, except we knew the schedule was tough. And when you schedule somebody, you don't know what the team's going to be like. And you do have a situation where Florida, these past 2 years have been unbelievably challenged. And it is anything would be easier than this, anything. Miami, if you look at, let's look up their schedule, who they got left. Can you call them out?
Yeah. Nobody.
Go ahead.
Louisville, Stanford, SMU, Syracuse.
Wait, go slow. Go slow. Go ahead. Start again.
They got Louisville, Stanford, SMU, Syracuse, NC State, Virginia Tech, Pitt. They'll be easily double-digit favorites in every single one of those.
So, Kevin, how do you justify that?
Well, no, I mean, they won't be a double-digit favorite against Louisville. They won't be a double-digit favorite against SMU.
But Kevin, you're missing a point.
No.
It's an easier schedule. You know it's easier, a lot easier. Okay. Would you rather go play Texas A&M out there? Would you rather play LSU? Would you rather play Georgia? I mean, come on, man. It's not even close.
I'm telling you, Louisville is a good offensive team.
Okay.
Jeff Brom,
Okay, yeah.
a very well-coached offensive team. Buddy.
They're a great schedule. It's a great team. I pass.
Jeffers terrible, but they just got a $50 million donation from
It's not Miami's fault.
We're gonna get
No one's
better.
saying it's their
We're gonna get
fault.
better soon, right?
I think the devil's advocate is Miami doesn't. Their conference is their conference, so they play the games that they have. They have a good out of conference schedule. I don't think the out of conference balanced with the in conference makes them the same strength as Florida's schedule.
That's precisely.
But I also think that when playoff time comes around, that will be taken into consideration. A 9-3 Miami team is not making the playoffs. Now, an 11-1 Miami team is making the playoffs. I think a 10-2 Miami team would have a hard time making the playoffs, particularly because their hardest games have already happened. So, but I mean, they play who's in their conference, and they schedule out of conference well. So I don't know that there's anything.
Let's look at some of the ACC, SEC head-to-heads. Let's look at Miami, Florida. Let's look at Florida State, Alabama.
Okay, look at them.
Because I had no idea you were a Miami fan. We've been doing this for all these years, and I never even knew. I learned something new every day.
I'm a Miami grad, but I mean I'm not going to get into this. Let's get back to Florida here and the state of the Gators, because that's what the focus should be, and the fact that Miami beat them twice by a combined score of 76 to that's immaterial, buddy, right?
Kevin, let's say they're on par with all the great teams in America. They play a great schedule. Okay, let's just leave it at that, because that's what you want.
But let's get back to the state of Florida here, and Billy Napier needing to get on a roll, obviously, and that's a situation that certainly looks a little more promising than it did last week. I think there's a level of belief inside the building and talking to players that you didn't have a week ago before they lost to Texas, and maybe this could happen. Maybe if they can beat Texas A&M on the road and they can beat Georgia and Jacksonville, maybe they can salvage the season here, get to 8-9 wins, and get a fifth season of Billy Napier.
Yeah. A lot of people reacting to your comments. So I will say that it's become interesting again. I will say also that I heard the University of Florida video people, and Callie, you comment on this for social media. They did a terrific job of capitalizing that game. That was network quality stuff there. That really was good. And I don't know what this team is going to be. I saw you talk about Billy said he saw something, a little spark in DJ's eye. I saw a little spark in Billy's eye in that video where he kept saying, "My guys." He had it all. He seemed like he was reaching his team, Allie, didn't he?
Yeah, that's one of the things he does best. He's done, if you look back in the last 4 years, 3.5 years, he has the uncanny ability to get these guys to believe when everybody else has closed the door on them. And I do think that that's admirable. Will it be enough to turn things around again? I mean, he was already left for dead last year, and they figured out a way to kind of pull off a miracle towards the end of the season, and he saved his job, and here we are. And they're going to have to do the same thing again if they want him to get a fifth year. But, out of all of Napier's faults, you will never hear me say that he doesn't have full buy-in and belief from the locker room, because he absolutely does.
The last week's moment of truth came down because it was so negative during the week about how badly they wanted Billy to quit or wanted Billy to stop calling plays or whatever. It got really negative last week. And when DJ had a practice and practiced well, and he said, and Billy said he had a sparkle in his eye, we almost didn't believe him. Mm-hmm. We all said, "Oh yeah, right, right." But he pretty well knew his team, and he had it pegged right, and they responded to him. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. I just know that when a team responds to his coach, that's a good sign. Yeah. And the defense, my word, what was it, 35 hurries? Mm-hmm. That was remarkable, didn't you think, Kevin? Their defense.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I think that's, and you got to give them credit too with all the injuries on the defensive line. You're getting some new guys stepping up. I mean, Burrow came back; he played very well. Brian Taylor Jr. has been a nice find. I mean, he had a sack and a half in that game. We talked to Burrow tonight, and he's a very sharp guy. Very dedicated, and a guy that wants to get better. I think that's what's interesting about him. And coaches have really praised his football IQ. Because you thought when Caleb Banks went down, I mean, this guy projected first-round pick, that the defensive line was really going to suffer, but it hasn't really missed much of a beat because other guys have stepped up. And that's a credit probably to Gerald Chapman too, I think, also in terms of how he coaches them and the front seven. When you look at Miles Graham too, as well, and Jane Robinson and Aaron Childs, that unit has been pretty strong. Devin Moore is having a very good season at corner. Cormani McLean has been probably a little up and down and got a little picked on in that Texas game. But I thought overall, defensively and what Ron Roberts is doing with the creeper scheme, having a veteran guy there, I think certainly helps. And they played really well, but they're going to have to do it again at Texas A&M because I think offensively it's going to be hard to score points. I see this game being very similar to that almost like that Florida-Tennessee game last year where, it could come down to the fourth quarter, it could come down to plays. I think the one thing that was disappointing, Buddy, in that Texas game was how they closed it. DJ's interception in the fourth quarter, not being able to really, bleed clock. The Austin Barber situation, which was kind of kooky, and you didn't realize that rule existed where the helmet comes off the clock. But, that really could have cost them. But, the defense, to its credit, closed out the game. Unlike the USF game, they got sacks, they made it hard for Arch. But you would like to see, if they're in that situation in the fourth quarter again, to run much better formatted offense. I think that's something that definitely needs to be worked on.
Okay. Allie?
I mean, I think that's something they've needed to work on for the last 3.5 years, that closing out games. Napier has a tendency to get conservative when things are going well for Florida. And I think back, remember when Ron Zook was the head coach and we would go into prevent defense, and you guys all started writing about how prevent defense prevents wins. And I think about that, but from the flip side of offense with Coach Napier, he gets so conservative that there's no reason for a game where we dominated from opening kickoff for the last 3 minutes of it for it to feel up in the air. There was never a point in time where that game felt close, except for when we let them in the very end. There just is there's not a killer instinct. There's not a okay, I'm going to step on their throat to make sure they're really dead kind of attitude. And you need that from your head coach. And I'm still not seeing that.
I will say this, Allie, I think that interception kind of spooked him. When DJ threw the pick with about 6 minutes to go, I think that kind of spooked him and he went into a shell again because of that. If DJ doesn't throw that pick, maybe they try to go for the jugular a little more, but I do think that situation kind of spooked him. But, and listen, Jaden Ball was probably pretty tired at the end of that game. He had 27 carries. So, he was kind of running on fumes, and he didn't have a backup running back because Duke Clark was hurt, but yeah.
Credit to them for being patient and sticking with the running game, because that's something we've been calling for them to do in other games this season, and they really haven't. And maybe that was kind of out of necessity as opposed to out of by design, because we saw Lagway went into the injury tent at one point. He definitely seemed hobbled. For some reason, he seems to play better hobbled. And I almost wonder if it removes that element of, should I run? Should I pass? Should I this? Should I that? It removes, okay, well, I know I'm not physically capable of doing X, Y, Z. So I need to do A, B, C because my leg isn't working right now, or, whatever. I almost feel like it simplifies what he's doing for him and he plays better that way. But something I looked at today that I found really interesting. Have you guys looked at the injury list for Florida versus Texas A&M?
I just looked at it just now.
Yeah.
We have, I want to say, you'll have to tell me the exact number. It's not in front of me anymore.
5 and 7.
Okay. So think about that. And Texas A&M has 2 guys,
right.
1 out, 1 questionable.
Right.
Why is it that our injury report is always 2 to 3 times longer than our opponent?
You can make it any way you want to, because if you think they got to hit you and get along, you can put them on the list.
It's just interesting that ours is always so much longer. And it's usually not we're putting somebody on there because they have a skin knee. They're serious injuries.
This is the first week, Allie, where they've done questionable. The last couple of weeks, they've only done out, and they've done it. But I guess, Jacoby Jackson being questionable, if you're an optimist, that's, Duke Clark being out is a negative, but the running back room right now is a little banged up. And, maybe you see KD Daniels, the redshirt freshman from Mississippi in this
What's
game.
the deal with KD Daniels? Why is he not playing now? I don't understand.
Well, because Duke Clark beat him out in the depth chart.
But Duke Clark got hurt.
Duke looked pretty
Yeah,
good.
he got hurt. He got hurt, and he didn't put him in.
I mean,
but Duke
was just balling. Yeah. Why?
Yeah, no, I think you had to stick with Ball on that. And plus, KD was, maybe a little cold in that situation. But I think, buddy, if Duke and I think they'll go to KD, as the backup. Right? If both Jacoby and Duke can't go, because Billy was talking about him, said he's been productive in practice, and they won't hesitate to go to him if they're going to need him in this.
Is Jelani back? Is Coach back?
Jabbar Jaluk, you mean?
Yeah, Jabbar.
One more game. This is the last one.
Yeah, all right.
Miami, obviously, Texas and Texas A&M, third game of the 3 game suspension. But he's coaching them during the week. Yeah.
All right, here we go. We've got about a minute and a half apiece to do this. What are we saying on coaches? Where do we go from here? My own record is saying they should give him the Ronza contract. Just let him stay because they haven't got anybody to be the interim. And they're going to have to pay him anyway. So let him coach the year out. And if you want to fire him, then fine. And then because the guy you want, their teams are all in playoffs. Anyway, that's my thought. Who wants to go next? What's yours?
Do you think he would agree to that? I wonder. Because
if he's fired, he's fired.
Right now? I mean,
but would that was like 10 or 20 years ago.
Doesn't matter. He has a chance to coach his team.
I don't know if today's coaches that flies though. I think Billy would be too prideful.
Okay.
He would
I think he would.
I disagree with that assessment. I think
right.
If you let him go, I think
what's your answer?
And they'll have to go.
Then what is your answer?
I think he's bought himself certainly more time.
No, what is your answer though to what's going to happen?
No, I think he's bought himself some more time. But if they're 4-6,
I don't want hypotheticals. I want you to tell me what to do.
I think you let him coach until it becomes toxic.
I think you're exactly right.
I don't think you need to do anything right now.
I think you're exactly right.
You get to a point where it's more toxic than positive in the locker room, regardless of outcome. That's when you let him go. And the reality is, hopefully they win 6 games and everything stays at least copacetic through the end of the season, and you can let him go. Then there is that new rule change that was just announced by the NCAA that now the transfer portal changes. So now they get 15 days once their coach is hired, not starting when their previous coach is fired, which I do think is an interesting situation for Florida. Because then at least you retain your roster through the year.
And they get paid at the end. They get paid first, and so they're going to pay them.
So I mean, I don't know. I think you let him coach until it's detrimental to your locker.
I like that, Carlton. What do you think?
Yeah, I've never been one who likes to just fire a coach mid-season unless it's something ridiculous. Even Coach Mack, I wasn't calling for him firing until he started saying all that nonsense about death threats and all that. Then it's get rid of this guy. So it kind of took something.
Well, it wasn't halfway through the season. It was like 2/3 of the way through the season. It was already season was almost gone.
Yeah, I think whether you fire him or not, if it gets to that point where everybody kind of knows it's a foregone conclusion. I mean,
do we have a guy? I'm still saying I don't think the guy they want was going to leave Oxford. That's just my opinion. I have nothing but a hunch to base it on. Based on him, what he looks like, what he says, what he's with his family, how it appears. Other people tell me, "Oh no, he'd come in a heartbeat. He definitely come in a heartbeat."
We've heard that before.
Yeah, we'll see. But I know I'm talking to a famous athletic director, now retired. He said the number one thing is the movability of the guy. You don't always know. And a lot of times the guy you want many times is not going to go because the timing's wrong. So it's all about the timing. So in our last 30 seconds apiece, what's to do here? What do you need to do here? Who do you need to hire? Carlton?
I don't have the first clue who they're going to. I mean, you're hinting toward Lane Kiffin. I don't think he's going anywhere. But maybe if it happens, maybe they do turn into big game hunters like they haven't really been in the past, and it's up in there. I'm not even going to guess. Just the philosophy has to change. You're not going for a guy who won at the Sun Belt Conference level.
Kevin?
Well, I think Jed Fish's star fell a little bit in that Ohio State game, but maybe Eli or maybe Rhett Lashley. If you can't get Lane, I still think you try to do what you can to get Lane. I've heard different things. I've heard the big money people want him, but administration is a little leery. So, but Rhett Lashley would be interesting because the spread offense guy, we've seen the spread work with Mullen. We've seen the spread work with Urban. I think the spread works better in the state of Florida because of the speed versus playing conventional against SEC teams. That's just my opinion. And I think that mentioning those two coaches and the success that either one had offensively, I think that bears it out.
You wouldn't go for Drinkwitz before you did that? I mean, Drinkwitz is still a pretty good coach.
Eli's pretty good, but spread. I know Lashley's offenses can be pretty dynamic. Obviously, he's got to find a defensive guy. Maybe he convinces Ron Roberts to stay. I don't know, but I think that he's an intriguing guy just because of that, because of the spread, which I think would work pretty well with DJ Lagway too. He ran the spread in high school, so if you can convince him to stay, that's another aspect of it. And maybe if he's ever gets healthier, you'd see more of that dual threat ability as a result.
Allie?
I have a differing opinion on the Lane situation. I think he'd crawl over broken glass to come to Gainesville. I think one look at his social media will tell you that. But Florida's not an on-the-job training program, and we've hired we're an on-the-job training program a lot recently, and I think that needs to end. I do think this new rule really does change things because I think about the fact that my own husband was going to hate Urban Meyer when Zook was fired, who he, had his differences with, but it was his coach. He was going to hate Urban Meyer, and it took about 24 hours for that opinion to change. So if you get 15 days with your players once you get hired for them to be able to enter the portal, you have a real ability to retain their roster. And imagine this roster with Lane Kiffin as their head coach.
And the family a little bit, Alex, too.
Yeah, I do. And I all of his in-laws are in Tampa. He talks about how Spurrier is his coaching idol. I mean, this is somebody who has a dad who was an NFL legend, and your idol is not your father, but Steve Spurrier. His daughter, that is Landry, that's at Ole Miss, is graduating. So I think that there is some room there. And then you couple that with, he just had his dog tweet yesterday something about spot the ball. He's tweeted that no less than 5 times in the last week. He knows it's a Billy Napier thing. He's put out stuff about how the timing wasn't right the last time, but now, the stars are aligning for timing to be right in his life this time. He's messing with Gator fans with 1,000% certainty.
All right.
Here's messing with agents too. This is a lot of leverage involved in this.
My question is, what if he's involved in the college football playoff? Do you wait for him?
Yeah, that's the problem.
It's hard.
That's why you need to keep
somebody. But then you beat him to keep him out, and then try and hire the coach that our numbskull has been able to beat twice.
It's too hard for me to figure out right now. All right, Allie, I'll bet you a steak he didn't come. It's burgers, okay?
All right, let's do it.
Right. Hey, great job, guys. Thanks. I've got to give you 30 seconds to pump the book out there, Carlton, real fast.
Franz Beer, we're going to put him on a book signing schedule, mainly in Ocala and Gainesville, but we're going to do a pre-sale. If you go to the Golden Season Book at gmail.com, send an email. You want it, and we'll tell you what to do.
It is the Golden Season. You know all about it. Kevin covered it. Guys, great job. Appreciate it very much. All right.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. All right, folks. We'll wrap up the show. We'll go out on this note right here. Tell our fans, friends, and neighbors we appreciate it. Well, I hope keep that on the screen. I'm going to tell you about Titan MRI and Imaging. It's 3 locations to serve you, 2 in Gainesville, Willis Park Avenue location, now Nottingham Center, and 1 in Lake City, serving all of Columbia County and Valdosta, Georgia. Titan MRI and Imaging offers the same great customer service as always. They accept insurance, or you can go through their convenient self-pay program options. They offer MRIs, CAT scans, X-rays, and ultrasounds. Like I said, easy scheduling. If you have a problem with your job, you can't go during the day, well, they'll make it for you. Even larger MRI machines, for your patient's comfort, and that's one thing I would go for sure. I definitely would like to have that. So if you need one of those things I just mentioned, tighten them right. You like people who are right there and can give you the best potential service that you would like to have. You need to go to Titan MRI. They have numerous locations soon to come to Ocala as well, and they want to take care of you and your family. They're located right now in 4 places, soon to be in Ocala. Thank our guests for tonight. Appreciate Allie, Pete, Wilbur. Sorry for the earlier problems we had with the video. We managed to keep it going. Thanks to Carlton, and thanks to all of our guys, including Kevin. All right, have a good night, folks, and we'll catch you tomorrow night right here on the Buddy Martin Show.